All right, big dog, we're in. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for taking a little bit of time to talk a bit of shit with some weird sounding guy on the internet. It's quite a weird thing to do, man. So I just appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It'll be fun.
Mate, let's jump in. What are you doing? This is some crazy shit. You said you're getting back into running. Let's start off with why.
Yeah, so I originally got into running mainly because I used to play college football. I was a Division I college linebacker for 5 years. I played at the University of North Dakota, and then I now I'm in veterinarian school at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And ever since I was done playing, life was just kind of content for me, and I just felt like things were almost easy. And I was looking for that constant discomfort, that constant enemy to chase after. So I ended up talking to one of my buddies and I was like, hey, like this is what's going on. I'm kind of looking for something. And he's in the military. So he was like, why don't you go for a run? So I've never been a runner. Never, I was a sprinter in track, and in football, the game is about speed and power. And so I ended up going for a run, and it kicked my ass and I really enjoyed it. And it kind of brought that edge back, it got that dog back in me. And so I started doing it a little more and more. And then I ended up wanting to look up to do a race. And a lot of people will do like a marathon or a half marathon first, but I wanted to do an ultra marathon. So that's anything greater than 26 miles. Um, so I ended up messaging some buddies and said, let's do this, man. We can all run it together. So I signed up for a 50-mile race in 8 weeks after only running. So I signed up for a race after only starting to run 8 weeks later. So it was short notice, and everybody said I was fucking crazy and that you're going to get hurt. And it pissed me off because everybody said you're not going to be able to do this. And so I ended up, signing up that day. And, I've been asked this kind of question before about like how I kind of got into this. And the more and more I think about it, I get frustrated because I think about all the times that I've said I was going to do something, but I didn't do it. And there's so many people nowadays that do that. I have a lot of people come up to me now and they're like, I'm going to run a marathon one day. You inspire me to run. I'm going to run a half marathon. I'm going to join the gym and lose 20 pounds, or I'm going to get into vet school, or, all this stuff. And it's just like, then you ask them, okay, so what's your plan? Which race did you sign up for? And it's crickets, man. They just look at you like, oh, I got to figure out, make sure my schedule works, or, I got to get on a good diet and do some research first. And I'm like, you're never going to do that shit then. You got to commit to it, man, because you're like everybody else. You just sit here and talk about it. My buddy and I actually have a term for it. We call it word salad, where you're just like, you're talking shit, man, but your mouth's just moving, but what you're saying doesn't mean anything. And I've been like that before in my life, and what I realized was I just don't want to be that guy anymore. So when I say something, it's gospel, man, and I'm going to sign up for it and I'm going to do it. And so then I did this race after only 8 weeks of training, man. And so it was that's kind of where it all started. I fell in love with it. It put me in a place in my mind where I've never been before, where I had to dig deep to push and finish these races. And each race has just been life lessons learned. And I've done three now, two 50-mile races and one 64-mile race or 63-mile race that I just did in winter here in Wisconsin. And that was about a month ago. And that was the craziest shit, man. It was a different animal. And really had to fight to finish it. So that's kind of how I got into everything. And I'm just falling in love with it and looking at the next challenge is going to be a 100-mile race in June.
Wow. Fuck. First of all, good luck. Right. Second of all, I think that's on surface level, just hearing it for the first time is inspirational, right? But also, I think human beings have this weird relationship to suffering, right? It's like obviously it's why we're still here, able to overcome adversity, right? A little bit of Darwinism for everybody. But at least in modern time, with comfort and quote unquote luxury and everything's kind of go to the path of ease, right? We're always looking for ease. I think there are still some certain individuals out there. You're definitely one of them. And I know I'm one of them because I'll stand up chasing my tail. If I don't suffer in some way, if I don't kick the shit out of myself, I'll be like an absolute piece of shit. I know that. Like, I will end up start drinking all the time. I'll eat loads. I'll do something daft, And I think I can only speak for myself, but also men specifically, because I am one. But I think a lot of dudes, and I know women are the same, but we're only going to speak for dudes here. I think a lot of dudes have this weird relationship where they have to suffer to feel purpose, right? Otherwise, our brain is just, I don't know whether we're less evolved, whether we're just a dumber part of the species, which I do believe in, right?
Mhm.
Women are definitely the better part of the species. They've got a little bit more going on than us. We're just a little simple upstairs, right? That need to
Yeah,
feel
yeah,
a bit of physical
yeah,
pain to like, oh, okay, life is worth living. You're like, what the
yeah.
fuck is going on here? But I think we got this weird relationship, but I think it's necessary. I really,
I
really
agree.
do.
I agree with that. Everything you just said, man, I agree with that 100%. And that's what I found was that when I wasn't constantly pursuing something extremely difficult, which now intrinsically has value because it is difficult, I felt the same way where I'm like, what else? Like I didn't feel like a purpose. And
Yeah,
so
man.
now that I have goals laid out in front of me, it's what's next, what's next, what's next. It's every day I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, ready to go. I had one of my buddies the other day, was just because I sent videos of me like shooting my pre-workout and at like 5 in the morning, listening to my metal music. And they're like, how do you have that much energy? And I'm just like, dude, when you are driven,
Mm.
there is nothing that'll break you, man. You'll wake up with a purpose and you're ready to go. And if you set goals, that's part of like my whole message, man, is if you set goals, you now outline a plan of how am I going to get better in my life as an athlete, as a person, and also as humans, we have an obligation, I think, to help others and bring others up with you.
Yeah.
And if you aren't pushing yourself and bettering your life, then you have no room to talk to anybody else to help them better their life. So it's all connected, man, in that aspect.
Yeah, for sure. We're hardwired to seek community, right? And comfort of people around, to share this experience of life. And I think that's what we're doing, right? We move physically and we interact in the physical sense to learn things intrinsically to then be able to share it so the wider community can then progress, because that's what
Absolutely.
basically keeps our species going. Otherwise, we'd be intrinsic and so insular, and then eventually we're going to die, and then that's it. Congratulations, no more humans, mega. It's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
no, this integration of ideas and different like experiences is how we've all progressed, but that needs to start off with accountability of oneself. Sometimes you got to get up 10 minutes earlier, 2 hours earlier. Sometimes you got to stay up 10 minutes later, 2 hours later, or sometimes you got to do shit that you don't want to do, man. Like
Yeah.
I can't tell you a time. Like we've both been athletes all our lives, right? We need to move around and do something. But I can't remember a time before a training session, whether it's in a chosen sport or whether it's now just kind of like GPP stuff or whatever it is. I can't remember a time where I'm not fucking so nervous or I want to throw up and I don't want to do it. Like every
Mhm.
single time, I don't want to do this shit, man. Like it sucks. I'll coach CrossFit classes. Everyone's like, oh, it's easy for you. It's like, dude, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do it. I want to stay at home on the couch. I want
Yeah.
to jack off 20 hours a day. Like, why? Because it's easier. You know what I mean? Smashing
Yeah.
burgers and stuff. But like, you got to get that delayed gratification, man. You got to get that ROI. You got to get that sense of purpose and that struggle. And you have to put yourself in a position where you're kind of facing your own devil.
Mhm.
It's you versus you. Literally, we hear it all the time, right? Whether it's like no pain, no gain, and the old like gym t-shirts, on like
Yeah.
bodybuilding.com forums. It's like it's you versus you, the man in the mirror,
Yeah.
whatever the shit they used to say. But it's true, man. It's like we've all got that voice that's like, you're not good enough. This sucks. Stop. You're gonna hurt yourself. Whatever, right? And you have to be able to battle it.
So I think that's so important in life in general. But that's one of the reasons why I absolutely fell in love with ultra marathon running, is because it is so much more mental than physical.
Yeah.
Because there is a point I could pinpoint an exact moment in every one of these races that I've ran where everything is fucked up, everything has gone south, my mental, my physical, all broken, and you're sitting there and you got miles to go and you're sitting there and you have to decide. There is a moment where you have to decide, am I going to hide? Am I going to retreat? Or am I going to fight? And those moments where you choose to fight, you build your character so strongly. And then it teaches you when you're like, in everyday life, when adversity comes in your life, you know how to fight. You know how to defend yourself in a way that when shit hits the fan, and people die or you fail in life or just bad shit happens, which we all know it's going to happen no matter what, you don't crumble because you've been there before. You've challenged yourself. You know what this mind is like, and you know what your character is capable of. So I think ultra marathon running exemplifies it for me personally in such a way that, you can get it in so many other things in life, but that's really why I love ultra marathon running. And this last race I did was like exact, like, man, it was crazy.
I got a lot of admiration for the states in a lot of different senses, but this is where I really like the whole sport culture, especially from an outsider, right? I've not been through the system. I don't know it literally being in it physically, but from an outsider, it's like it you kind of big up that whole dog mentality, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
It's like preparation is key, and I don't know if it's birth from the Navy SEALs. I don't know if it's birth from specific culture. I don't know. Like, I'm an outsider, but I think it's awesome because it bleeds off more into the GPP sense of we need to sort of work towards preventative medicine rather than reactive. You don't have to go out and run 64 miles. Everybody listening, you don't have to run 64 miles. That's fine. Walk around your fucking block 3 times. That's it. That's all you need to do. Do something. Like, I used to, back home's freezing. You're in Wisconsin, it's freezing too. In winter, it's bloody freezing cold. You don't want to get out. There's ice everywhere. You're going to fall over. Great. I used to run up and down the stairs, man. Like, that was my training for rugby. Like, literally used to run up and down the stairs. Like, what, you telling me like the winter's too harsh? I was like, great, do 1,000 push-ups for time. Do 100 push-ups for time, sit-ups or something. You can always do something, right? And I think
It's anything that brings you out of your comfort zone.
yeah,
That's the key. Is it has to you have to break the wall in your mind that says that this is uncomfortable, so we shouldn't do it. You have to be like, well, when logic ends, that's where growth is. And that's like how you like we've been talking about, that's how you get better is by whatever it is. It doesn't have to be running 63 miles. It doesn't have to be doing CrossFit or teaching CrossFit classes or benching 400 pounds. Like you said, it's push-ups. It's learning how to play a guitar. You
yeah, man,
know, it's
100%.
anything that makes you uncomfortable.
I absolutely love that. I'm like, do something, take a salsa class, learn a different language, even just live in a different culture, country, right, with a different culture, because we
Mm-hmm.
start breaking down those barriers and you start to understand that the human experience is quite universal. It's not bound by height or gender or skin color or national borders or shit like that. You're like, oh, we've all got shit we don't want to do, and we all benefit from doing the shit that we don't want to do. And you're like,
Exactly.
huh, okay, maybe I go learn from them over there, us over here, and we all just kind of interact. And again, that combination and the integration of those ideas, great. Let's then push the whole thing forward.
Exactly. Exactly, man.
Mate, tell us about this 64 mile, 63 mile.
Yeah, man.
Tell us a story.
Yeah, so it's called the Frigid Fox. It's notoriously one of the toughest races in the Midwest of the United States. It's in the winter. It was 20 degrees pretty much the whole day, 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and you're on rocks, roots, ice. It's tough, man. And it's just 7,000 feet of elevation that you're just going up and down the entire day. You have 24 hours to complete it. So this was the furthest I've gone, the most elevation I've ever had to deal with. My first time running at night, and it was my first race in the winter. So a lot of challenges. So basically, everything went well. I came out hard, and then at mile 23, I started just like imploding. Like my body just started failing on itself. My legs were just like cramping really bad, and I was lightheaded, nauseous. It was like after a leg day, where you like take a step and every now and then your legs like collapse under you. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, man.
Is it was like that where I would climb like a hill and I would have to stop at the top of the hill and like put my hand up against a tree or like lean up on these poles, on my trekking poles, because it was like I can't take another step because my legs are just torched. And I'm like, I have 40 more miles to go. How the hell am I going to do this? And this was the first time where I truly thought that I was incapable of finishing this race, of finishing a race. And so all these breaking thoughts come in my mind where I'm like, a lot of people quit these races. You've only been running for 8 months, or you've only been training for or running ultra marathons for 8 months. Like people, this takes years for people to do this shit. So I was making excuses. And then I started thinking about going on the attack. And I was like, and I say this out loud, I was like, you know who says this shit? Motherfuckers that lose. And so I just tapped into this like animalistic attitude where I just I tapped into this. I've never been here before in my mind where it was just like I'm going on the attack and I'm gonna stop. I mean, I was getting passed by people, and like you ever seen like in I guess in like some the nature documentary or some shit. It's like you see like the lion cub and the wolf cub like kind of annoying the like big alpha wolf and shit. So the little cub, that was my like physical body, just like making excuses and wanting to quit. And then my mind was like the big alpha wolf that, it's had enough and it just snaps. And it took over. And I started thinking, I'm like, my watch died, so I had no idea about pace, no idea about heart rate, no idea about miles. And I was like, fuck this. The only thing I care about is I'm gonna hunt all these people down in front of me like they're prey animals, and I'm going to pass them, leave them in my dust for the next 40 miles. And so I just started building this fuel, man. And I just started hunting these people down. And it sounds crazy, but this is what I needed in the moment. I was like snarling at these people when I would come up behind them. Like I was like 50 feet away and I would start like growling and shit. And like I would pass them. And of course, like after I pass them, or like as I'm passing them, I'm like, hey, keep fighting, because it's such a camaraderie community. But I was just like in this zone where I was like just passing people left and right. So I got told that I was in 16th place at mile 26 when all this shit happened. In 20 miles, I passed 11 people.
Holy shit.
So I got up to 5th place. I started thinking about where I'm going to put the trophy when I win this shit, and I fucking missed a turn and got lost. And I got a mile and a half off trail. My brother calls me and he's like, dude, you're off the track. Like you gotta, and it's dark, so it's kind of hard to navigate, to be honest with you. And your body's just like done at this point. It's been running for like 12 hours. And so I have to backtrack. And then I get to the mile 45 aid station, and they were like, I asked what place I was in. I was in 9th. And so I just fell back a little bit. And then my buddy Ian was pacing me on the last, because then you were allowed to pacer at mile 45. So he paced me 10 miles out. And then my girlfriend Mackenzie paced me back, and we passed 2 people. And I finished sprinting across the finish line a mile. I finished in 7th place. Total time was 15 hours and 39 minutes. And I mean, dude, my body afterwards was completely fucked. Like it was a wild experience. It was the greatest experience I think I've ever had in my life. I mean, I approached life differently after this thing, man. I mean, my body was, I'll just tell you this, dude, after the race, like my girlfriend drove us home. It was an hour to the race grounds. And so I get to my house and I slept the entire way home. My girlfriend helps me up the stairs and I like can't walk. Like my legs are just, because your body realizes you're done now. So everything just shuts off. I started getting lightheaded. I started getting nauseous. And at that point, my stomach stopped like working. So you can imagine kind of what that was like. My digestive system shut off. And so I just lay down flat on the bed and I'm like lightheaded. My legs are like completely rocks and they're in pain. My feet are bleeding because they're blisters and all torn up. And I'm like hyperventilating. I like can't grab a breath. And I am like violently full body shivering. And it was just, this went on for like 20 minutes. My dog even like came up and like cuddled next to me because I'm pretty sure she thought I was like dying or something. But it was just like, I mean, dude, I've never been that trashed. I pushed myself beyond what I thought was like, because at mile 26, man, I thought I was done. I was
Mm,
actually thought I was like, man, I don't know if I can finish this shit. And then I just tapped into that dog that we're talking about, you know? And
mm.
so that was the race, man, and it was crazy.
I think I think there's a lot of beauty to be found in that primal state of a human being. You know, we like to think we're all sophisticated with these laws and the vibrations and the words that we create to be able to communicate with one another, right? But all we are is animals, you
Completely.
know, with opposable thumbs, you know, that like to
Yeah.
spend too much time doing bullshit that doesn't actually help us. You know, and that's it. That's all we are. And I think there's so many lessons to be learned in that state of like my entire existence right now is to put one foot in front of the other and hopefully stay on track so that you don't do more miles, you know. But that's it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Your entire existence for the rest of your fucking life is putting one foot in front of the other, and nothing else matters. It doesn't matter what you did in school. It doesn't matter the past times that you fucked up, any laws that you broke. It doesn't matter about your age. It doesn't matter about your name. It doesn't matter about anything else. It's just putting one foot in front of the other, right? And some of us needs to go to the extreme to learn that. Other ones don't have to go that far to learn that. But I think the lesson in that is so beautiful that people need it in whatever capacity that is. If it's going to bloody Zumba class, do it. If it's running fucking 300 miles, do it. Like, get that lesson. It's so cool.
Man, you just articulated that in a way that I've never thought of. But it is beautiful because there's so many times in life where things are going south around you. And it's literally just, I just need to make it to the next hour.
Yeah.
Or I just need to make it to tomorrow. Or and it is just a one foot in front of the other kind of deal until you get out of whatever it is. So like, you know, with people battling adversity, it seems a lot of times I feel like, and the times that I've felt like where I've had no way out, it feels like the whole world is just caving in on you and that this is my forever state. I'm just fucked. But if you break it down into like one by one, like you said, where it's just one foot in front of the other, I just got to get through the rest of the day. I just got to get through this shift. I just got to, get through this workout.
Mm.
And then you eventually can find your way out of it because you're just getting closer and closer to the finish line. And I mean, I think that is so applicable to living a positive life.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too. And I think it's the same. I think it was birthed out of probably adversity of in the physical sense, you know, always just I dealt with things upstairs by kind of taking the pain from mental and causing it physical, right? And I just would
Mm-hmm.
just train and would reach the state where, you know, I can't fucking move, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and you're literally like you can't put any weight on your leg because it'll buckle and you'll hit the floor and you know you're seeing stars and you're getting dizzy and you're throwing up and you're blacking out and all that shit and people are looking at me like what is wrong with you, man? I was like, well, there's a lot, I'll give you the list later, but you know I'm working shit out. That's what I'm doing. I'm figuring shit out, and that shit
Mm-hmm.
is myself and that interaction and that relationship I'm having with myself, right? You know, I don't believe I say this all the time. I don't associate myself with people who are too nice, right? And
Mm-hmm.
let me elaborate on that. Everybody's fucked up. You know, we've all got some sort of thing going on inside of us,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's the person that we could be, whether it is like a vice that we do. We spend too much time on TikTok. You know, we don't have a good relationship with XYZ. We said one thing sometime that we're really pissed about, whatever, right? We've all got a good and bad wolf. And people who create a persona of everything's hunky dory and fine and do lally, I'm like, I don't believe you because you're lying to yourself, never mind anybody
Mm-hmm.
else. And that's dangerous. You know, everybody who kind of says, hey, look, I'm fucked up, I'm trying to work this out. You're like, cool, you've got step number one, and that's you've accepted who you are. And now you're trying to figure it out. And I think being able to do that physically, you're able to tap into that, well, that animalistic, that dog,
Yep, the
right?
dog.
All we're trying to do is survive, man. That's what we're trying to do,
Yeah.
you know, but we're able to peel back those layers. And I have the same thought process with bouts of depression, right? I'm sure a lot of people listening, I'm sure yourself, I know, speaking for myself, hitting rock bottom more times than I care to admit. It's like a frigging basketball at this stage. You know what I mean? It's just bouncing around the place. But
Oh
at the
yeah.
same time, like once you're down there, you're able to see life and the world around you through a different lens. And again, I think
Mm.
that's beautiful, right? And I keep my book. It's actually on the floor. It's like a little notebook, and I write. And I've written 3 frigging books of poetry, and that's all come from different bouts of depression. And people say that's awesome. And I'm like, yeah, kind of. And then they say it's sad, and you're like, kind of. It's this weird blend and amalgamation and balanced quote unquote life of, yeah, you're gonna get the light, you're gonna get the dark, but guess what? That's what life's all about, man. It's the spectrum between good and evil. And I think
Completely.
being able to understand that is really important. And it's even more important if you're able to put yourself there. I'm not saying put yourself in a state of depression, but I'm saying put yourself in a state of suffering, because we're able to learn those lessons under your own control rather than a situation shoving you down there.
That's the thing, is if it's self-directed adversity where you voluntarily challenge yourself, kind of like what I said earlier, is where you learn your character, and then that way when the shit hits the fan, you've been there before,
Yeah, bro.
and then you can help others and bring them up with you. And dude, I could list tons of stories about myself and also people that I know personally that what seemed like the worst thing in life that happened to them, they've turned into just amazing stuff. Because a lot of times at rock bottom is when the best things are like born. Because like you said, you get put into a place where you have no choice, you have to fight, or you see life through a new lens, like you said. And it's a lot of times that's where a lot of the meaning in life is found,
Mm-hmm.
is when you're stripped away from the fake bullshit in life where you it's easy, it's comfortable. You get stripped down to a weak point, you build back stronger. And I empower a lot of people, man. I try to empower a lot of people by preaching this to people, because I think it's so important to approach rock bottom as an opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to change the world, man. You can change the world by embracing rock bottom.
And how do you do that? You change yourself, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I
You
think
look
you're
in the
doing that.
mirror and you say, this ain't it for me.
Yeah, man. I think you're doing that because you're showing it. You're not just sat on your high horse somewhere eating caviar, sipping champagne, and be like, "Yeah, let's go, bitches." It's like, no, no. Like I'm in the trenches too, man. I'm in the fight with you. You know what I mean? Like, what leader are you gonna respect the most? Somebody who's sat back with the thumb in their ass, or somebody who's leading the charge forwards? It's always going to be that latter
Definitely.
one, right?
Yeah, I agree, man.
Brother, I got 3 questions.
Go ahead.
Question one: what is the greatest piece of life advice you've ever received?
Greatest life advice comes to mind is actually two. One that I've heard kind of recently. One is more so just, I think, a philosophy to life. Is that it's actually kind of what we were just talking about. It's beware of unearned wisdom.
Mm,
It's the people that haven't put themselves through it, but want to be an armchair expert and sit there and talk about it. Is I'm not going to take advice from somebody who hasn't put it through themselves, or haven't put themselves through it, or they haven't like the best coaches, in my opinion, are the coaches that have done it themselves, or they're extremely knowledgeable about it. And when you get a great legendary coach is when they're both.
you've done both. Mm-hmm.
So that's probably the best advice I ever heard. I think the second best advice I ever heard was actually a quote from a United States general named General Patton. And it's, a good plan today is always better than a perfect plan tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about just taking action, man.
100%. 100%. I couldn't agree with both of those anymore.
You know,
What is the worst piece of life advice you've ever received?
worst life advice. Probably honestly, just in myself, was I was working with a few, because I'm going to be a veterinary surgeon. I'm in veterinarian school, and this was right before I started veterinary school. I had a doctor tell me one time, because we were talking about how I've learned so much working here, and uh, how I feel like I have an edge going into school because I'm so familiar with, I've seen a lot already at the hospital. and he said, "Well, don't try and stand out." And I feel like I knew what he meant, but also I'm like, why would you not want to stand out? Why would you not try and be the best? And you have to, and by standing out, I mean like you have to take action and prove. You can't just sit there and try to tell everybody how great you are. But I think that was the worst piece of advice that I've ever heard, just because it was like what, you want to blend in with everybody, you want to be mediocre, you want to just be average. So that I'd say, just off the top of my head, that was probably the worst advice I've ever heard.
Mm, I can empathize with that a lot. Heard it in several different paraphrases, and it doesn't quite compute with my head. I'm like, well, I believe so strongly of the law of individuality, of like everybody's got something, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody can be the teacher and the student at the same time. We all just have different, limelights to be able to express that. And no, blend it in with everybody. You're like, well, if I have a table and everybody's the same, I might as well sit on my own.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Man, I think it's okay to have an ego when you go in and approach things, but I think there's a distinction here. An ego fueled by capability is different than an ego fueled by entitlement. Because an
Mm,
ego fueled by entitlement is like, I can do anything I want, I can accomplish anything I want, but I don't have to work for it, it'll just come to me. Versus capability is, I can do everything I want, I can accomplish anything I want, but I'm the only person that's going to do it. And I think having that when you approach things, not only does it make you successful, but I also think that if you have a healthy competition with people where it's like, I'm going to bust my ass, you're going to bust your ass. In that way, we're both going to make each other better. I think that is so healthy in
mm-hmm.
a work environment, on a team, and coming from a college football team, man, that was all the time. We were all fighting for playing time at the linebacker position, but we were all pushing each other and helping each other, trying to make each other better. And that's healthy. That's how you win, man.
Same, bro. We had to fight for that jersey. Nobody was given a jersey. It's like we used to have it. We used to have a saying from our coach of like nobody's got golden balls. It's like no number is given. You know what I mean? We had fucking like England level players in our team and shit, and it was like he wouldn't give a fuck. He would cut everybody if they were turned out to be an asshole. He'd be like, "All right, on you go, on the bench. Don't turn up fucking Sunday. You're not turning. You're not playing." And it's crazy. It's just like, okay, well, I have to earn every goddamn minute on that pitch.
Yep.
And yeah, I believe in that too. Last
Yep.
question: what are the three words you tell your younger self?
Hmm. So I could go back in time and tell myself, I would say, if I could tell myself like when I was in early high school, like 15 or 16, kind of like when I think I made my greatest life changes, and for a variety of reasons, like with, I lost a friend then, which really hurt me, and I really became super goal oriented. I dealt with a lot of people telling me I couldn't play college football and stuff like that. I think through that time, I needed support. And so I think I would just go back and like, I would say, I believe you.
Mm,
And I think I think that's what I needed to hear back then. I had a lot of people in my corner, I will say, my parents, my brothers, my trainer. But I think there was always that doubt that would creep in, especially like in your growing up age. And I think just if I could look at myself and at the age of 24 that I am now, and be 15 years old, and just hear, "Hey, I believe you." I think that would go a long way.
mm. That's real powerful, man. And I feel in a real big position of privilege to be able to hear that, mate, in real time. So thank you,
Yeah, man, I appreciate it.
brother. It's been a blast, man.
Yeah, went by quick.
Yeah, brother. Fucking 40 minutes flies by. You know what I mean? When you just start getting into a conversation, you start chewing on the bare bones. Like, I love it,
Yeah,
dude. It's been an absolute honor, a privilege, mate. We got to do it again. We're getting
yeah,
into
hey,
something.
yeah. Go ahead and whenever you want to do it again, man. We could talk for hours probably.
Yeah, man. Let's set something up. All right,
For
brother.
sure.
Appreciate it, man. Honor and a privilege.
Honor and privilege as well.
All right, man. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon.
Yep. See you later.
Bye, everybody.